We have a little bit of a Julia Kay restock to kick things off today. Back in stock are the two very popular washi tapes, her magic potions, or pretty potions, and also her little Swedish houses from the Almoga set. These three paints are back in stock, so we have Uda, we have Aconitum and Algot, which sold out so quickly when we released them last week, so they're back in if you want to grab a hold of those. We also have a restock of the really cute little Julia Kay tins if you want to keep all your pretty paints safe. And last but not least, releasing this coming Friday, which is the 16th of August, is Julia's newest set of colours, and this is the Fire series. So there are 6 colours in the set: Freya, Katla, Karen, Raker, Helios and Elda. So you can keep your eyes peeled later in the week for a swatch out of those. We'll stick that on social media. These are available both through the Stash Shop and on Julia's Etsy store, which as always the links to that are down in the description. In the Stash Shop we have them in half pans, and you can buy them as a full set in a tin like this, or you can buy them individually as well. If you just want to pick and choose what colours it is you want, you can do that also. Exciting times. Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave, where we like to play with art stuff. My name is Jem and we are going to be starting a new colouring series today in the wonderful Worlds Within Worlds by Kerby Rosanes. And we're going to do something a wee bit different with this in terms of the image. And the image in question is this double page of the little shoe houses, or the sneaker houses, or whatever you want to call them. So I'm kind of going to treat these independently, but it's going to run as the same series. And what I really want to do with this picture is to have 2 different scenes. So on this right hand side here, this is going to be a nighttime scene, but it's going to be in the autumn. I felt with all these little leaves floating down that would be a good opportunity to take advantage of that, and you all know I like a good light source, so I really want to utilise that to do dark and light and have a lot of contrast in this side. On the left hand page I want to make this a lovely spring day, so we're going to pretend that this is a cherry blossom tree, so we're going to have lovely bright blue skies in the background, and these are all going to be pink, and again the leaves that are falling will obviously be cherry blossoms in this case. So I thought that would be a really nice contrast to have these two side by side and really have like an explosion of colour and a feast for the eyes. So to kick things off, get it? I want to start with this right hand page, and the reason I'm doing that is purely because I'm left handed, and if I start over here when we come to do this page I'm going to be leaning over the top of it. The pencils that I'm going to use for this entire double page is the Castle Arts gold pencils. So that is the Castle Arts oil based pencils, and I have them in this lovely faux marble case here. As we go along and we're picking out colours, which I will display on the screen in the corner or at the side somewhere before we start, I will show you them in the swatch book as well if you want to use another set of pencils, or if you're a lot more rebellious and like to mix and match, at least you can look for a similar colour in a set that you may have. So before we even touch the coloured pencils, there's something very important that we have to do for this page, and then we can get going with some colour. What we want to do is take a very light graphite pencil. It doesn't need to be a specific grade. I have an F pencil, which is one that some of you will know I use quite a lot. Any H grade pencil would do. And what I just want to do before I start getting stuck in with the coloured pencils is to mark out the areas where the light source is going to be and where it's going to hit. So the obvious place to start is these lanterns. So we have to decide on the circumference of the radiation, if you like. So I kind of, I'm not doing this scientifically, I'm thinking more about aesthetics and how the colour is going to hit the paper, because the background is going to be very, very, well, it's going to be black. So quite important. So I think we have to be fairly generous with this, and I would like to include some of the tree trunk. I am going to make that the circumference of, these must be like super 65,000 lumen lamps, these ones. But that'll allow us to, you know, to really use this to advantage. So this bigger string here is going to spit out a very similar radius. So if I've just got that very lightly down on the paper, we can erase our graphite as we go, but I've deliberately made that circle big because I want the light to hit instantly off of the laces here, and there's quite a lot of contours there, so that's going to make for some quite interesting colouring as well. The other place I want to have a light source is down in this corner, because due to the shape of the shoe, if the light's only coming from here, this would be very, very dark indeed, because it's on the side of the shoe, not on the front. So I've got two options here. There's these two little decorations that hang in the doorway. So I could use that as a little light source, and that would illuminate this door, which I quite like the idea of. But there's also this sign on the front of the building as well. I'm assuming this is some sort of market or food shop, or maybe it's a takeaway, you know, or like a cafe or something, because this looks like food. This looks like a very rigid slice of avocado. And that looks like a little bento box or something. So this sign could be illuminated as well. Because this is like a canopy. This is sort of sticking out, and the doorways, you know, it's like in underneath. So even if we did both of those, we could keep this light source fairly local. But we could also have a little bit of light off the sign. Again, if the sign's illuminated, it's mostly going to be the front. It might be the only part that's illuminated. So you're not going to have a lot of bounce light in the immediate area, but you'll probably get some sort of glow off of it in the immediate vicinity. So if we just kind of make a smaller shape round there. As I say, we can erase these graphite lines as we go, but this is just a guide just now so that we can get going, because today we are going to focus on the background. So there's a couple of ways that you could tackle this, and it's entirely up to you. I did toy with the idea of just having a flat black background, and for something like that I would normally use acrylic paint. However, there isn't a huge amount of surface area in terms of the background, so I figured it would be best just to go in with pencil. So to keep things simple, we are going to start with an ivory black, and this is the darkest black that I've got. There are lots of choices in this set of pencil, but this is, you know, we want to go as dark as possible, especially when we're up at the top here. And I was thinking maybe that the sun's, you know, it's maybe just dipped below the horizon. So in this bottom third here, we're going to use a little bit of like indigo and blue. And then we'll have a very faint, maybe yellowish colour right at the bottom here. So it's not going to be completely boring, I promise. And I like to work in little sections, especially if you've got a lot of ground to cover. It can be quite overwhelming, especially in a very detailed picture like this. But pencil and vast expanses generally don't go well together. So mentally, I like to break it down into different spots. So if I get zoomed in a wee bit, and I'm going to start up in this right hand corner. So if I start here, the edge of my pencil line is just under this branch. I know it might be too faint for you to see. So that is where I'm going to start. And I don't necessarily need a completely even and flat colour. For me, coloured pencils, that's not what it's all about. I like the texture and the slight inconsistencies of pencil. But what I do want to do is have a fairly even coverage. So I'm using a scumbling motion. And when you're doing this, you're better not to have a really sharp pencil, because the sharper your pencil is, the more that you can see every individual stroke. But if we work in this little scumbling motion, little tight circles, not pressing very hard at all, and build this up, it doesn't take long, especially when you're working in wee sections like this. Resist the urge to press down hard. You'll get a much deeper and richer colour if you build it up in layers, especially with these being oil-based pencils. Something that I have learned over the years is I have a preference for oil-based pencils, and they tend to, not always, I mean not all sets of pencils behave differently, but they do tend to lend themselves better to the layering process than the wax pencils. There is a wax content for those of you that are maybe not as versed on coloured pencils. Oil-based pencils still have a wax component, because that's what the binder is, that's what holds everything together. But oil-based pencils are usually referred to those that have either a reasonably high oil content, or the oil content is greater than the wax content. Very few companies will give you their ratios, because obviously it's part of their secret recipe. But that's generally accepted definitions of oil-based pencils. So you can see what I'm going for there, and basically I'm just going to keep going to see how much the paper's going to take, and we seem to be faring reasonably well here. Okay, so you can see we've got plenty of layers down. We've got a nice, mostly even colour. Perfecto. So I've stopped short. That was just a convenient place to stop. As I say, my pencil line's around about here. So when I am using a coloured pencil, I want to stop a wee bit short of that because we're going to have to blend the light out the way into this very dark colour, and we don't want a really solid line. So you need to give yourself a wee bit of breathing space there in order to achieve that. So again, graphite lines here are come down like this, and then there's one that goes up like this. So just work my way towards them in all the nooks and crannies. And when I come close to my graphite line, I just want to lighten up my pressure, and I'm going to fade that colour out again to give us room to blend those colours together. So not as many layers on that very bottom part. You can see that I've got quite a soft transition there back to the white of the paper. So I'm just going to kind of follow my graphite line here. Again, this doesn't have to be an exact science, but if you keep the pencil fairly light at this stage, when you actually come to add in the areas where you've got your light radiating, you can tweak it and you can jump back and forth between your pencils and increase the intensity if you so desire. I say it all the time, but you're better to have too little and have to add than to go absolutely ham, because it's very difficult to erase coloured pencil, especially dark colours like this. So we don't want to make it hard work for ourselves. Now again, I kind of obviously planned the idea out for this page in my mind before I started filming, but I have not picked colours. I've done zero planning. It's one of those little pleasures. My life and the way I like to do things is generally very regimented. Everything's very organised, and I feel this gives me an opportunity to kind of relax a little bit and fly by the seat of my pants a wee bit. Now we will come to a point, pardon the pun, I'm full of the puns today, where the tip of your pencil will become too blunt to get into little spaces like the undulations on these leaves here. So, you will have to sharpen at one point. When I was talking about having a slightly more blunt end to your pencil, it's much more important in larger areas like this here. So I've got my my Tegal sharpener. I know not everybody's a fan of these, but I really like them. There we go, back to where we were. It's really nice to come into this colouring book. Believe it or not, the last time we coloured any Kerby Rosanes was actually over a year ago. It was June 2023, and that was when we did the Galapagos penguins in Fragile World. Some of you might remember that from a while back. If you haven't seen that series, it is obviously complete, and that was another double page that we did. I'll link that video down in the description, and I'll stick part 1 on the end card. So if you're looking for a colouring fix, you can carry on after watching this. I'm trying to remember what pencils we used for that, and I want to say Polychromos. I can't say for certain that was what we used, but it might have been Prismacolors actually, now that I think about it. It was a long time ago. Lots happened in a year. Yeah, so we actually started that before the cave move. That's how long ago it was. Because it was near the end of June when we packed everything up. It's funny because sometimes I feel like I've been in this cave forever. Like, this feels like a good cave. I always felt in the last cave that I never really had the room laid out the way I wanted it, and I was never satisfied. I was always moving stuff about and chopping and changing things and moving lights and one thing and another. Whereas I feel it's been much easier to settle in this cave. Yeah, sometimes it feels like I've been here a really long time. But to put it into perspective, in the first cave, we were there not quite 2 years. And then the last cave, we were there 3 and a bit years. So I foresee no further cave moves though. That's the last one, I promise. So it's probably just as well that I feel settled in this one. We won't be doing anything more to the cave now, probably for a year or two at least. One thing that will be happening eventually is, I'm sure some of you maybe in the live streams have seen the very attractive blush pink carpet that's in this room, and that's something that I didn't change. It's an old carpet, and I just decided to keep it because between Jock doddering about and leaving his hair everywhere and dropping paint on the floor and things, I've decided I'm just going to keep it till it's threadbare. But we're doing a lot of building work with this house, so when the second building work commences, which is probably going to be 2 years away, I would say is probably accurate. Some of the furniture in here, which includes the dark furniture that matches these desks there, that furniture will be going into the part that's been built on. So at that point, I am going to pull the carpet up. I'm going to put a hard floor down in here, much better for paint spills and cleaning up dog hair. And I'm going to get some lighter furniture to match the units where we've got the packing station for the shop. Keep everything nice and light and bright. So that's the plan, but that's long into the future. Things will be staying as they are for the time being, which I, for one, am very happy about. I've done enough moving about. I require no more changes, thank you. I don't know about any of you, but I'm a creature of habit. I like my routines. As I was saying earlier, you know, aside from colouring, I do like to be very regimented. I like to know what's going on. I like to be organised. And moving about a lot does not facilitate that very well at all. I find moving very, very stressful. I do not enjoy it at all. So the arc of this light comes all the way down here. So I can just do these sections. These are all going to be solid colour in between the branches. So I'll just speed this part up. Okay, so same thing down here now as I've done here, just sort of fade out this edge. My pencil line's about here, my graphite line. So I'm just going to work my way casually, saunter down here with my ivory pencil, and I'll fade that out about there-ish. I am going to work my way around all these little petals or leaves, whatever you want to call them. On this side it'll be leaves for us, on the other side it'll be petals. So a bit of patience, but just really taking my time with this. I'm not in any hurry. You can see that's just starting to get the contrast in now. It's looking like a good start. So just want to continue on down here. So really on this right hand side we're getting into the territory where I want to start creating a gradient with some colours. So we'll figure that out in a minute. And I'm just going to carry on here. So this is by far the biggest area that we've got to work with. And if I zoom out here, I want to decide at this point where the colour's going to start to change, because I'll need to soften out my pencil the way I've done here so that we can start incorporating the other colours. So again, I'm just going to grab my graphite pencil. So it can be a good idea to look up some reference images if you're not too sure. I do want to keep it fairly low, as if, you know, the light has almost disappeared. So I talked about thirds earlier, which is quite a standard rule with artwork, is, you know, working in thirds, surprisingly. So really, I kind of want it to be more than that though. I think I want to bring the black down probably to about the halfway mark, maybe even slightly further than that, maybe 2/3, and just have this bottom third as where all the colour's going to be. So I'm going to go for it, and I'm just going to pencil that line in across there. Let it run all the way across so that I know where I am working to. So roughly there. Again, we're going to be, oh, that's a little bit lopsided. Come on, Jem. We are going to be doing this very gradually, so we don't need to, you know, we don't need to worry too much. It's just a guideline. I'll just take this other line so I don't confuse myself too much. So I'm going to have the sort of faintest of orangey yellow down here. So that's only going to be to like there. And then we're going to transition that into a pale blue, and then into a darker blue, probably about there. And then this gives us a section here to work the dark blue into the black. So I'm going to bring the black to this first line that we talked about, and I'll do the rest of the work with the gradient in here. I'm not changing my technique at all here, exactly the same as I did in the smaller areas. Obviously this will just take a lot longer. So mentally, when I'm talking about breaking things up into sections, the flagpole there, so this part here would be a good section. And then I would probably have this as a whole section down to the edge of this roof. And again, at the top of the shoe, and then down to the bottom here. So really the biggest section we're going to be working in is this here, and it's shorter than the length of my finger, so I would say that's fairly sensible in terms of breaking it down into bite-sized pieces. It's also really helpful if you don't have a lot of time to colour. If you've got a pretty tight schedule like me, it would be lovely to be able to sit down and do a whole section. And obviously, if I wasn't filming a video, I wouldn't be sitting colouring for this long. I normally colour in sort of short, sharp bursts. So if you are able to have sensible start and stop points as well, having those little bite-sized areas is really great, because you can say to yourself at the start, well, I want to get, you know, this little section done, and you may only have 20 minutes, half an hour, whatever. But if you can get that done, then you feel as if you've progressed, you know, you've moved the picture on a little bit. That's definitely like my brain very much responds to that kind of setup. So there are various reasons why it's a good idea to work in sections. It also helps you plan as well. And, you know, having that sort of stop point to sit back and look at what you've done is always good as well. Just, you know, take a wee step back, assess. I have to say, in all the years I've been colouring now, which is quite a few, I do tend to find, see the pages that take the longest, they tend to be the ones that turn out best, or maybe not turn out best, but the ones that I am most satisfied with. And I think it's because I'm taking measured and sort of deliberate decisions, because there's gaps in between when I'm working. If I see something that's not right, I take the time to change it. That's my theory anyway. It seems to work for me, so. Sometimes you do just need a quick fix though. It can be a bit of a nuisance when you're at the edge of the page. If you flick strokes out towards the edge of the paper, once you've got the rest of the colour down, you know, once you've got your layers built up in the right colour intensity and the rest of the area, that can be quite a handy way just to tidy up the edges and make sure that it looks finished. I was thinking we might even be able to add in some wee stars in around here, maybe with like a Posca pen or something. Once it's finished, that might be a nice touch. We'll see how busy the picture looks. Once we've got it all coloured, we can decide from there. I have to say that these Castle Arts pencils are, they're playing very well with the paper. I wasn't sure how this was going to go, to be honest, but I'm quite liking the way it's going down. The pencil's going down on the paper. I mean, to be fair, the Kerby's books, the paper in them's pretty good. We had this discussion in the Discord, it was a while ago now, but we were talking about the paper in the Johanna Basford books, and in her newer books, I'm really not a fan of the paper. I used to like it, and that's the thing, and I'd asked the question, you know, when did the paper change? Now, I remember way back, and when Ivy and the Inky Butterfly came out, that just shows you how long ago that was, the paper was very smooth and white compared to the likes of Secret Garden, Lost Ocean, all that jazz. And in Ivy, I stuck with the I stuck with the Prismacolor pencils and just did the old like smoosh down one layer, like bash down a layer kind of job. And smushy, blendy, all the colours together, which is obviously Prismacolors are great for that. But as time's gone on and I've bought some of her subsequent books, I don't have them all, but I've got World of Flowers, I've got Rooms of Wonder, which as a book, I love it, and Small Victories as well. And I don't enjoy colouring on the paper anymore. And I think it's probably because my preferences and my techniques have evolved over the years, and the paper just doesn't really suit what I want to do anymore. And I noticed she's got another book coming out, and I'm not going to buy it, which I'm kind of sad about, to be honest, because Enchanted Forest was my first colouring book, so I've always had a bit of a soft spot for Johanna's art. You know, I get to the point where I'm just not enjoying it, and it's the paper, so I'm a little bit bummed about that. But these pencils in this paper, and I've never had any problems or dislikes in any of Kerby's books for what I'm trying to achieve. I've always been very happy, and these pencils are no exception. I don't know if any of you heard that. There was my wrist cracking. Seem to be doing a lot more creaking and cracking these days. It must be my age getting on a bit now, you know. Okay, so we've got the donkey work out the way now, and as you can see, I have filled in all my areas. This looks a bit odd just now, but it will come together, I promise. And I've got this tiny little space down here, which I'm just going to leave until we've blended everything together. So this is where things get a bit more exciting. So thinking about dusk, so the sun has gone behind the horizon, but there might still be a wee bit of light poking through. So what we're going to do is we're going to put in some bright colours down here, and then we're going to blend it up through into this black. So the other pencils that I've picked out here, I will just again show you the colours in this here swatch book. So for the sun setting part, I have picked out this golden yellow, so very delicate, very nice indeed. And I'm going to be using that along with brilliant yellow and the marigold as well. So the marigold is going to be closest to the horizon, and we're going to fade out through this colour, then this colour, then this colour. Going from the top down for the black side, we've been using the ivory black, and I'm going to blend that down the way, and I am going to blend that into the indigo light and in turn it down into the ultramarine, so these two next door to each other. There is a slight colour difference. This is actually quite dark, especially when you start to blend it with black. So we just have to trust the process with that. But obviously this is where things get a bit more exciting. So the idea is that we tackle this from both sides, and we work up a bit from the bottom and then work down from the top, and we meet in the middle. And if you've ever seen any of these kind of dusky pictures, there is like a band of almost white in the middle. Just a lot to do with reflection, etc, etc. So going with my pencil lines down here, I'm starting with the marigold, and I really don't want this to take up an awful lot of the space. This is just literally going to be a sliver of colour, so maybe just up past the heel of the shoe there. And let's say we'll take that into the brilliant yellow, so we can start and put that down. So if we do this in light layers here, you're much more likely to get a nice blend between the two. And I can erase my pencil line there, my first pencil line, and that's going to take us into the golden yellow, which is the very pale yellow, and I'm going to bring that up to my second pencil line there. So the idea here is we now just want to build up the colour, blend it all in together. So I'm now jumping between these three pencils. This marigold's a lovely colour. If we keep our pencil pressure light as we move up, we've got a better chance of getting a smoother transition between our colours. I really want this to be quite intense down here. Make sure I get a couple of extra layers down the bottom. So in with the brilliant yellow now, and then my very delicate golden yellow here. And we are to just under that pencil line. And if you're using your lighter colour, you can come down into your darker colours. Due to the opacity of the pencils, it's not going to have a huge impact, and obviously we're in the same colour family here. So I think I'll go back in with my marigold now. Just right down along this bottom part here. And then one last layer of our palest colour, just to kind of bring everything together. So deliberately going over the transition areas just to smooth it out a little bit. So we just want to do the same at the other side because we want it to be consistent all the way across. So we just need to be aware of what we've got over here and eyeball it and try and line it up. So that having the pencil lines is really helpful for this. Again, just take away my graphite line there. Bring my brilliant yellow up here and then into the golden yellow. It's just giving my marigold a wee sharp in there. It is super windy today. The wind's really picked up. Don't know if you can hear that in the background. It's a bit wild outside. Like that. Okay, looking good, looking good. So now we're going to go from the dark part down. So I've got my ivory black and my indigo light here. So to begin with, I'm going to take the indigo light, and I'm just going to start that on that soft edge that we've left with the ivory pencil, the ivory black. Ivory and ivory black are two very different things, Jem. And again, keeping that soft round that edge where the light's going to be coming out from the sign, that we decided. And I'll bring this down to maybe about here, as good a place as any. So we have to work a bit harder with the darker colours, just because they are obviously more perceptible to the human eye than a very pale yellow. So using the yellow colours is fairly straightforward, but if we want to make sure everything's going to be even and looking good, then we need to work on our layers and things a little bit more with the darker pencils, but that's okay. So that's going to be my indigo light, and then with this ultramarine, I'm just going to start that underneath there. Again, we'll blend it in. We'll do a bit of blendy, and you can see I've got my pencil at like a 45-degree angle to the paper here, just so I'm using more of the side of the pencil. You can use an overhand grip like this as well. I quite often use that. That's comfortable for me with my my dodgy hand. And we're basically going to stop that about there. And we'll deal a bit more with that in a minute, but let's work on this transition first. So I'm going to go back to my indigo light now. And say overlapping with that black, start to build up some colour here. Again, resisting the urge to press really hard. It's not really going to get you anywhere, honestly. Tiptoe around these little leaves. Okay, so we've got a better laydown of the indigo there. And now I'm just going to grab the ultramarine and I'm going to work in from there. So you can see these two blend really nicely together. Now this is kind of difficult because we are on, like, because we're in the gutter here, you always get a bit of kind of wonky colour, and you can see it a wee bit right there in at the seam. There really isn't much you can do about that. What I will say to you is don't panic and obsess over it. Bear in mind we're on a background here. Now in terms of this set of pencils, there isn't a very light blue, like a sky blue, that doesn't sort of fall over into turquoise. So I'm sticking with this ultramarine pencil. And I'm literally going to sort of fade it out to almost nothing down at this last pencil line here. So we're going very, very light, feather light touch here, feather light. And then just build up the intensity in the highest up part where we join into the indigo colour. The minute we start to head south, we let up the pencil pressure so that we get a nice smooth fade there. Okay. So I'm just going to run my eraser across that, take out my pencil line, and I'm kind of catching the bottom of the ultramarine as well, and that's okay. I'm not mad about that. If it lifts a wee bit of the colour, that's fine. So if I zoom out now, you can see, oh, pretty. Now I do, pretty. I do want to bring the, I do want to bring this yellow a little bit further up. I feel like this white band is a bit, it's just a bit too much. So I'm just going to pop that up a wee bit. Again, not mad about it, so I'm almost touching that ultramarine, but I'm not overlapping it too much, because we all know if you mix blue and yellow you get green, and we're not going for an aurora feel here, but if we bring it right up, it feels just a bit more finished. So that's kind of what we're going for. I do feel like as well I've got quite a sort of straight line here, so I'm going to go back with my ivory pencil and my ivory, there you go again. I'm going back with my ivory black, and I'm just going to, again using the pencil on its side, I'm just going to bring this down over the top of some of the indigo a bit more. I've got this patch here and I think it's just the oils off my hands. There's not much I can do about it, honestly. But we'll try and kind of like work round about it a little bit. At least bring it over here to this side. I'll try and blend that out a bit. The paper is actually shiny there. There's not much more I can do with that. Yeah. Okay, so I've got a wee bit of a stripe there, but I'm not mad, it's fine. So again, the same thing, we want to do this over the other side. So we've got this kind of like wider area here, and I want to do this first before I tackle this wee bit in the middle, because technically there should be a wee bit of black in there, but honestly I think that's, we would classify that as splitting hairs. So we'll do this part first and see what it looks like, and we can go from there. And we can split this in two as well, because we've got this sign here. So we'll work our way in our indigo first. We'll bring this black down a little bit. And we'll just let that dance down a little bit down there. And then we can grab our ultramarine to around there maybe. Okay, so fairly happy with that. I just want to bring my indigo into the mix now here. Just build up a bit more of that darker colour. So there we are. Because we don't have the gutter of the book, you can see that's a much easier and smoother transition. I'm just going back to my ivory black. Ivory black. I just want to add a little bit more in. Honestly, bad habits. Oh, okay, I think I'm quite happy with that. So again, I just want to match this up now. We're a wee bit lopsided, so if I grab my ultramarine pencil, bring this a wee bit further down, and then do the same. That looks, yeah, it looks a bit better. And then just use my golden yellow to come up and meet it a little bit. Okay, I am quite happy with that. So we've just got this last little section to do. So as you can see there, you can just follow on, like it's really easy just to carry on what was happening there. I don't have to worry about the fade out down to the yellow, so I can start with the ultramarine rather than the indigo, and I can just work my way up. If you don't want to pick your way around these little petals and everything, you can of course just go over the top of them, and you can always add them back in with something like a Posca pen or a gel pen. Maybe you want some shimmery leaves or something like that. Obviously that is an option as well. They seem to be big enough for me to navigate them though, so I'm just I'm gonna do the work now. And then grab my indigo pencil. I think I'm going to do the same again with the ivory black here. I'm just going to bring a little bit of this a bit further down just to kind of ease this transition a little bit. Because the indigo pencil, it is a light pencil, it's called Indigo Light. So it just needs a bit of backup from the old ivory black. So we can very gently join these together now. Oh, that is a pointy point, oh my. So I'll go on the side of my pencil just now. With these types of backgrounds, I mean, a lot of it is just about patience. This has taken me quite a long time. Obviously, I've done a bit of a cut and shut with the footage, and I've taken chunks out and sped parts up. And there's no requirement for you to spend a really long time on a background. It's just something that I really enjoy doing, and I get quite a lot of satisfaction out of it. If you're not that way inclined, as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, you could go for just a plain black background and do it in acrylic paint, because that does not take long at all. And also with acrylic paint, the other nice thing is it dries really quickly, so you can get on with the rest of your page if that's what you want to do. But I like this, I get a lot of satisfaction out of this. It's funny because there's a lot of things in life I am not the most patient person. But weirdly for pencil, I've got loads of patience. I've got loads of patience with my animals as well. I have endless patience with my animals. Unfortunately, I don't afford the same courtesy to humans a lot of the time. But then again, some of you already know that. I'm not actually a particularly good people person. Just switch back to my ultramarine down here. Really get these blended in together. It's nice to have this kind of like curved edge to work off as well. It makes things a little bit easier. The indigo and the ultramarine, they blend really well together as well because they're quite close together in terms of actually like on the colour chart. Okay, let's take a wee zoom out now. There we go. Yeah, so down here in this last tiny little bit in here, as I say, this is kind of like splitting hairs a little bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab the indigo pencil for all that the space is, honestly. It's just this tiny little bit in here. I had an old school teacher and she used to say, don't make a meal of it. So it kind of follows on from the, don't make a mountain out of a molehill kind of idea. So just going by my pencil line, the light bounce is probably going to go to about there. Again, I can always, if I've not gone far enough up with that, I can always go back and add a bit more in later. But I think for what we need, I think that's going to be about it. Because if we remember this radial light source, my pencil line comes down here and then curves back up and obviously crosses over with this one. So doing the tree trunk is going to be fun. But there you go, guys. That is it for today. That is our background for our autumn evening shoe scene, or if you want to pick a less convoluted name for it, please feel free to leave that down in the comments. I hope you've enjoyed this today. I'm really happy to be back in Kerby's books and doing a bit of colouring in here because I've kind of missed this a little bit. And the next instalment of this will be relatively soon. You can keep your little peepers peeled on the channel for the next part. Thanks very much for watching. Thank you so much for coming and hanging out with me. You know that I always appreciate it. I enjoy reading your comments, and I will see you back in the cave really soon for another video. So have a great day, everyone, and bye bye for now.